and there was at the intersection, if you recall, there was a traffic circle, and then you came in here before you made a turn in here. So at that intersection, so that was where originally it was settled, because that was the major road. That didn't last for very long. That was in 1926-27. For those people who don't know, there were Arab riots across the country in 1929, and as a result, that settlement was basically abandoned. Then there was a further attempt to have settlements in this area. There was a company that was set up that was called El Hahar. There was a fellow in Europe whose name was Holtzman, who basically bought a lot of land in this area with the idea that he was going to create settlement over here. In 1934, there was an attempt to settle Gush Etzion. Okay, that also did not last because there were Arab riots in 1936. But because of this guy and this plan that he had, that's why this area became known as, well, first of all, Gush Etzion, and then Gush Etzion, because Holtz means
wood,
which is eitz, and therefore it was called Etzion because of this person. Okay, what eventually happened was that in 1943 this actually started to become a reality, so that the first place that was established was, if you look over there, wait a second, no, that's not over there, you can't see it, but you'll see it when we go there. This is Gush Etzion. Gush Etzion is a kibbutz. Okay, so Gush Etzion was one kibbutz that was established here in 1943. Eventually there were three other kibbutzim that were established. One of them was called Ein Tzurim, which is where currently you saw Rosh Tzurim. It was in that area. Okay, then subsequently there was another kibbutz, Masuot Yitzchak, which is actually right near Bat Ayin, where Bat Ayin is, where we're going to be going to. Okay, and then the fourth one was Rivadim, which is also in the area of Ein Tzurim. Three out of the four, the first three were religious kibbutzim. The fourth one was a secular kibbutz. And this was also something that was very unique in terms of being able to have a gush, a block of settlements that weren't just religious, but that were religious and secular, where they actually worked together. So this was something that worked, so to speak, but it was very short-lived. What happened was that, I said to you, they began coming here in 1943. In 1947, people are familiar with the partition plan. In the partition plan, this was actually not part of Israel according to the partition plan. Okay? What happened was that the Arabs, and not the Arabs necessarily who were the local Arabs, but more from the outside, basically decided that why wait till anything happens? Let's start doing something about it. And as a result of that, once the partition plan was declared, so then the whole area was basically laid under siege by Arab guerrilla forces. There were a number of attempts to try to bring food in. Okay, we don't have time to go into, there was some famous ones where there was a whole convoy that was basically, in the end, killed because of the fact that they were discovered by an Arab shepherd, and the Jews realized that they had been discovered by an Arab shepherd. A number of the people on the convoy wanted to kill him. The other people said, don't do it, because he's just a shepherd. In the end, what happened was he alerted various forces in the area, and this convoy was basically destroyed. What happened was that the siege became more and more intense, and at a certain point there was a decision made to, at least in Gush Etzion, to evacuate all the women and children who were basically brought to Jerusalem. And basically this area fell a day before the State of Israel was established. The day before the State of Israel was established, this area fell. What happened in Gush Etzion, there was a whole battle in which they were overridden. In the end, about 250 people were killed. According to 4 people, eyewitness accounts, who fled, there are a number of people who were killed after they had surrendered. After they had surrendered, they were lined up and they were shot down. But the point is that this area was was seen as an area that Jews had been living in. When eventually the people who did surrender in the surrounding kibbutzim, besides Kfar Etzion, were taken into captivity into Jordan. When eventually the people were brought back, and eventually there were negotiations to somehow get the bodies of the people who were killed here, there was a mass funeral in Jerusalem, and this was actually a national day of mourning, because in general the sense of the country was that Gush Etzion was like part and parcel of Israel, even though it was not actually part of the partition plan. The reason why you're coming to this tree is because in 1947, when this area was conquered by Arab forces, everything was basically leveled. Everything that existed in this area was destroyed. The only thing that was left were there were ruins near Bat Ayin of the kibbutz Masuot Yitzchak, the foundations of it, and this tree. And the reason why this tree was kept was, this is a tree that, according to various estimates, is between 600 and 700 years old. For whatever reason, the Arabs considered this to be a sacred tree which they wouldn't touch. So this tree was kept, which means that basically nothing in this area was left except for this tree. The children of the people the children who had actually been born here, right before the state was established, some of them went on to establish other kibbutzim, which they tried to somehow commemorate the memory of the ones here. So for people who are familiar with it, near the Carmel, near Haifa, there's a kibbutz which is called Nir Etzion, which is a spin-off of Kfar Etzion. In the south, you have Ein Tzurim, you have Masuot Yitzchak, which are the original names of two kibbutzim here. Plus, you also have, in another place not so far from here, another kibbutz, Rivadim, which Rivadim, which is secular, and Masuot Yitzchak and Ein Tzurim.
When I did archaeology over the summer, we stayed at Rivadim.
So here, testimony to that. So in any case, basically it was the people who had been living here who decided to then, transplant themselves to other parts of Israel to continue establishing kibbutzim, but they're, I won't say a legend because it's actually true. In other words, the children of the kibbutz people very often who were living in the south, in the area of Masuot Yitzchak Ein Tzurim, could actually see from where they were this tree. And there was this idea that they would get together and they would somehow say to themselves, someday we will come back here. Now the reason why I bring this up is because in 1967, after Israel basically took control over this area, so Kfar Etzion was established about 4 months after the Six-Day War, established by children of the original founders of Kfar Etzion. By the same token, Alon Shvut, which is over here, the reason it's called Alon Shvut is because this is an Eitz Alon, an oak tree. Shvut means what? Return. So it's you're returning back to the oak tree. So this is the people who founded Alon Shvut basically did it for that reason. Originally, the, let's say, core of Alon Shvut was the yeshiva, and the people connected with the yeshiva, and they came here in 1970. But eventually they expanded to people who were not connected with the yeshiva, and the people who were not connected with the yeshiva were actually people who also had originally lived here before 48. Okay, there's a field school in Kfar Etzion. One of the most famous tour guides from the field school, and I would say in Israel, is a fellow by the name of Aryeh Rutenberg, who's an American. He is actually married to the woman who was the first baby born in Kfar Etzion, in 1943. So he is one of the first people who lived in Alon Shvut, and I got to know him very well because, as I said to you, when I came here in 1972, so that was still when it was in its infancy stages, and we actually lived with the regular people who were living over here. A number of people asked me questions, so I'll just say when I came here in 1972, the relationship between the Jews and the Arabs in the area was actually unbelievable in terms of coexistence, in terms of what I